All right, everyone, welcome to part 24 of the broadcast. This is where we catch up on news, tweets, videos, charts, trends, and any other Bitcoin related content that stood out to us in the past 2 weeks. Usually I do this with Brian and Michael, but Brian's wife is having a baby, I think so, or almost. So we have Marty back on, man. Dude, the last time you were on, that was probably the most viewed episode ever. So I'm happy you're back.
Oh, I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
And shout out to you, Brian, and Brian's wife. Congrats on the child. They're
I
great.
don't know if the baby's already here, but
I don't
he's
even
not
know
here.
if people were allowed to know, but people know now. So
Oh, sorry.
it's
YOLO.
I doxed the baby. Sorry, bro. Okay. Yeah. So Marty, you kind of know how this goes, but we all shared our links, and we're just gonna go through them, chat about them, see what our ideas are, and yeah, let's hopefully have a fun conversation. So first thing I wanted to bring up, I saw this Hans Herman Hoppe, and I wanted to just play it and then ask you guys a question.
And all central banks. The second source of funding for the ruling elites, besides the money extorted from the public in the form of taxes, comes from the central banks. Central banks are allowed to create paper money out of thin air. This reduces the purchasing power of money and destroys the savings of average people. It does not and cannot make society as a whole richer, but it redistributes income and wealth within society. The earliest receiver of the newly created money, that is usually the ruling elites, are thereby made richer, and the later and latest receiver, that is the average citizen, are made poorer. The central bank's manipulation of interest rates is the cause of boom-bust cycles. The central bank permits the accumulation of ever greater public debt that is shifted as a burden onto unknown future taxpayers or is simply inflated away. And as a facilitator of public debt, the central banks are also the facilitators of wars. This monstrosity must end and be replaced by a system of free, competitive banking built on the foundation of a genuine commodity money such as gold and silver.
First off, I thought this was very well articulated in just one minute. Actually, very well, like amazingly done. One of my conclusions has been, after almost 3 years doing a podcast, that it's really nice talking about Bitcoin, but talking about the problem is just way more important, right? If people don't understand the problem that we have, they obviously won't see the solution as well. So I just want to share this because, again, I think it's a good summary. But at the end, he says, built on a foundation of a genuine commodity money such as gold and silver. What do you guys think is the biggest challenge, not only in having people see the issue that he is perfectly describing here, but actually that Bitcoin in 2025, 26, 2030, whatever, in this digital age is actually the solution and not gold and silver? Like why are people still stuck on this gold and silver, where when we are talking about Bitcoin for like 15, 17 years now, which objectively I would say is a better solution?
I think familiarity, Lindy, as many people like to call it. It's just it's something that I don't think we should get perturbed about. It makes sense. It's natural. Gold, silver, commodity money has been around for millennia. It would make sense, particularly like somebody like Hans Hermann Hoppe, who's been like on the cutting edge tip of the spear of Austrian economic and political theory for decades. And the Austrians of the 70s, 80s, and 90s were really pushing gold and silver sound money. So for him, particularly to put forth the solution to the ills of centrally controlled monetary policy on a fiat system, it would make sense. But I think, as the three of us know, Bitcoin is superior. And beyond the familiarity of gold and silver, I think something structurally that we have to admit and recognize is that if we are in this period where the fiat system, particularly the dollar reserve system, is losing its power, and people are looking for alternatives, and they need to diversify their reserve assets outside of U.S. Treasuries, dollars, and other foreign exchange currencies, like that's a ton of flow. They need to reallocate a ton of value. And if we're just being objective, Bitcoin's sitting at a, what is it, $1.35 trillion market cap. It can't
Keeps going lower.
yeah. Whereas like gold and silver collectively, I think over 35 trillion in market cap, or at least recently they were. Like you can actually do that. But and we've been pretty consistent about this on Rabbit Hole Recap, Matt and I. This transition to a Bitcoin standard is going to be fiat chaos as the multipolar world increases and they print too many dollars. The governments and central banks will fall back to gold temporarily, but then the restrictions and the pitfalls of the gold standard, well, people will become reintroduced with that, particularly centralizing supply in vaults that that few people can access, and the inability to actually use it as a day-to-day currency. Maybe Tether Gold solves that problem, but I find it hard to believe that you'll be able to fully trust that the gold is actually in the vault. People will reintroduce themselves with the pitfalls of the gold standard, particularly in the digital age, and eventually come to recognize like, oh, Bitcoin is the solution. And in parallel to all these lessons and all these transitions, Bitcoin will continue to go up in purchasing power and market cap and liquidity, and it'll be more conducive for the transition to the Bitcoin standard down the line.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, this pod's fun, Marty, because Bram is living in the Bitcoin world full time, and I'm just stuck getting punched in the face, by TradFi, and people thinking we're crazy. And even the firms will talk about going into the space in digital assets. They still don't even understand that Bitcoin's money. And so, to your point, the Lindy, the liquidity profile, or the one that I like to point to is hardcore Bitcoiners per se can't even get that quantum relevance or what timeline it is. So how can we expect normies or people that are just finding out about this to park all their capital in something that they perceive, they don't even understand like different levels of it all the way to quantum. So it just makes sense. It's going to take a function of time. But the thing that sticks out, I've always thought about, and I know it's come up a lot of like when Bitcoin really monetizes and gets to 7 figures and beyond, it's always been understood that the world would be chaotic. And we're like getting into that place, right? Like that notion of the zeitgeist and like the atmosphere would fundamentally change, and it's happening before our eyes. Like you think about whether it's geopolitics or just AI, the notion of work and dissolving like these rails and these borders that have historically existed. Like those things are going to be the backdrop of 7-figure Bitcoin, where people are just going to understand that the world's changed, and that's going to help accelerate that adoption. Versus like imagine if the world was static and you try to get more people into BTC, it's hard for them to wrap their heads around going from this commodity money that was money for thousands of years to something that's physical in nature. But as everything starts to go digital, or digital in nature, but as everything goes digital, the world starts to become more fast paced. You need AI agents to run all this stuff. It's just going to be at the backdrop of like, well, of course we have to, like, there's going to be a new form of money. And I think we're getting set up for that.
Yeah, I think what I take away from this is that it's going to take way longer than many people anticipate. I would say, especially when you're really interested in Bitcoin and you understand that it's objectively superior, you want or think, all the other people that should know, also know. But I think like Mike said, there's still a lot of people that view this as just an investment. When they hear people like us talk about Bitcoin, they think we are talking about an investment, and they are judging it as such. So yeah, I think it is. I think your replies are interesting, but also sobering, right? I think it's going to take longer. And like you said, Marty, like when this whole discussion around, should we go back to gold, hard money, what is hard money, etc. When that comes, I think that is probably where Bitcoin enters the bigger picture again. I would say.
Well, I think another way to frame it too is multiple paths you can go down. And I think you got to have expectations for two specific routes and hold them in your mind at the same point, the one of which we just laid out, where it's going to take more time. Information needs to be distilled and needs to permeate, and understanding of Bitcoin and how it compares to things like gold and silver and fiat currencies needs to take hold, that knowledge and that understanding. That's the view that we just laid out. But the other one is like we live in a time of acceleration. So who's to say that the proliferation of AI and its ability to basically help people better understand things, if it's used the right way, sort of accelerates that process. And who knows, maybe we get to AGI, ASI, the agentic world sort of adopts Bitcoin as its currency of choice, and it doesn't even matter what humans think about it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think you have to hold it's going to take longer than you expect in your mind, that idea and that thought and that realization alongside and parallel to we live in acceleration, a time of acceleration, and who knows, maybe it could happen much faster and just prepare accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If AI accelerates even more, then the whole money printing, making sure everyone who's getting fired doesn't doesn't die, etc. The whole collapse of the economy, I think that comes along with that is gonna make is gonna turn the money printer on, right? There's going to be not a collapse in productivity because the computers are going to do that, right? But it's more a collapse in the ability for people to create wealth, income, stuff like that. So I am also very interested to see where that's going to go. And I wanted to say, like, this is a tiny bridge to a link that you brought, but then I read further. But we're talking about AI, but I thought it was really interesting how this article talks about this whole AI supply chain. Can you tell a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is so if you're on X, I'm sure you've seen this, but I had my had my little bot do some more research on this. But it is pretty crazy to think. Obviously, the discussion around AI, particularly with the data centers and the hyperscalers, is the supply chain, from the energy part of the equation, and more specifically to the chip part of the equation. And when people talk about the chip side of the AI um, equation, they're really focused on NVIDIA and some of the other, some TSMC, Samsung, the wafer chip producers. And I just thought these stories, that sort of emerged this week out of Japan, or just not even stories, but facts that are emerging, is that this supply chain is much more intricate and has different actors that one wouldn't expect. So, for those who are unaware and haven't heard this yet, apparently Toto, which is the Japanese toilet company, is an integral part of the AI chip supply chain because of a certain type of ceramic that they have a patent and trademark on, and so they use the ceramics for their toilets, I believe, and their sinks. But it is also used when you're building the GPU chips um, for NVIDIA and other AI GPU producers. And then not only that, there's another Japanese company called Ajinomoto, that they make bouillon cubes and umami seasoning. But in the 1970s, they found via their amino acid research for MSG production that it generated a chemical byproduct. And I think they wound up patenting that, and it creates this film that is also integral to the chip production. And so you have to like lay this film. And many people in 2021 were talking about the supply chain disruption, for chips, specifically in the auto industry. Many people thought it was the foundries and the producers of the computers, but it was actually this Ajinomoto seasoning company that couldn't produce enough of the film when the supply chains were disrupted back then. So I think it's just fascinating. I thought it was a funny story.
And this stock went up like crazy, right? Because it's
Toto, yeah, a big hedge fund
yeah,
basically bought a bunch of the stock and then said, "Hey, you should buy this." I think it's been up like 30%
yeah,
in the last couple of months, 60% last year.
yeah. I thought this was a really fascinating story, and I'm also interested to see. We hear Jeff Booth talk about technological progression and innovation is deflationary. He talks about creative destruction and stuff like that. I wonder if, like, this could make this company now also the king of toilets, basically, right? Like if this becomes the richest toilet manufacturer in the world, maybe they become a toilet manufacturing monopoly, right? Because they will just have the most money. And I think it's just very interesting to see what other types of industries AI can touch, but also the other example you have, right? Like any byproducts or just the forcing of innovation, because the growth of AI is going to go so quick, that there's also going to be like new needs in whatever data centers or connectivity or, whatever energy, whatever topic, right? It's going to force this innovation because the AI train by itself cannot really stop, right? Eventually becomes this competitive advantage for, I think, countries, nations, blocks, whatever. So they are forced to innovate and kind of having to find that in all these different places. So I think super interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The main thing I've taken away and been thinking about, and I know you guys probably have as well, is like memory shortages and figuring out how to stock up and have like hardware, because we've seen the reflexive loop of like paper towels or toilet paper from COVID, and then we obviously know of scarcity, and like you see what happens with Bitcoin when there's high demand. That you can just see when this narrative of memory and owning your hardware, running a lot of this stuff takes off. There's just going to be shortages across the board. And so that's what that made me think of.
When it comes to holding Bitcoin securely, peace of mind starts with architecture. OnRamp's multi-institution custody distributes control across 3 independent regulated key holders in a 2 of 3 quorum. No single point of failure, no pooled or omnibus exposure, segregated client-titled vaults. You retain full legal ownership while OnRamp coordinates security, compliance, and operational workflows behind the scenes. It's strength of many delivered through the simplicity of one. Multi-institution custody is the foundation for everything we build. Sound infrastructure that distributes counterparty risk and provides fault-tolerant resilience with clear audits and institutional controls. And now OnRamp is piloting flat, predictable pricing, making best-in-class Bitcoin custody and financial services more accessible now than ever. OnRamp, strength in many, simplicity in one. To learn more, check out onrampbitcoin.com.
Yeah, there's one of the other links I shared is from a newsletter we wrote earlier this week, and apparently Sony is pushing back the production of PlayStation 6 by a year.
Really?
Elon Musk out there talking about building his own fob because they can't build the chips that he needs for XAI fast enough. And I think it honestly, as it pertains to Bitcoin, something we have to keep on our radars, because if you have these AI hyperscalers sucking up all the compute and components around the computers that are needed to train and run inference on these models, like if they can successfully go to TSMC and Samsung and say, hey, like we will pay well beyond what your other clients would just to focus on building these chips, and you get something like Bitmain, MicroBT, Canaan can't even get space on the foundry floor to build their Bitcoin mining ASICs. Like that could disrupt the Bitcoin network in a way. But I'm a big believer in the solution to high prices is high prices. And I think the incentive to spin up more of these fobs. I mean, we've been told for many years, particularly in Bitcoin, that it's way too expensive. It takes too long. But I think AI is going to be a forcing function for us to figure out these supply chains and make them more robust.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but this is what I mean, right? Like there's going to be there's a certain force that's going to drive innovation. Even today, I saw there was a guy. I need to write it, share it with you correctly. Yeah, here. There was a guy who had an LLM hardwired directly into silicon, so it runs 10x faster, 20 times 20 times cheaper. So what I also really like is that there are also people are tinkering with stuff, right? Like just like AI also gives this democratization of productivity. Basically, I follow a guy who made a cursor for hardware, basically, and it's so funny that this is it. I won't show the whole video, but you just say what you want to build. It tells you what to buy. You buy it, and then it just gives you the whole schematic. It says how you need to plug everything together, etc. And when he published this, 2 days later, I saw 3 or 4 more of these products, right? And it's just going to go quicker and quicker and quicker because the kind of like the age of ideas, right? Like in this kind of like startup age, let's say, 2008 or 2010 to 2020, right? It was all about like, oh, I have this idea and I need to build it out and I have to go to market very quickly, etc. Now ideas are just extremely abundant, right? So whenever someone builds, some ideas were already abundant, but now like you can just copy it. So you need a real moat if you want to survive as a new company. And if it's just a great idea and you don't have a moat, thousands or millions of people are going to copy it, which I think is a good thing. Like that is the actual acceleration, I would say.
You know what that just made me think of is I think like, you've been far down this rabbit hole on what's going on in Marty as well, but about like robots, and in the same way we're going to be close to like thinking things and then the application will be developed. We're not that far from like outside having our robots, and you're thinking of that schematic and the drone's going to drop off the materials and it's just going to build the like house or whatever. Because that's effectively what you're describing. This is just like the early stages of your computer hooked up to your 3D printer. It makes it for you. How far before the robot's just out there on your land, just building whatever you want?
And how long before they say this is my land now?
Well, that's where Cam Duty, one of the
Gonna
companies,
get you with a brick behind the shed.
No, one of the firms, I forget their name. I need to remember it, but Cam Duty that I think's working out of them is what is it? The Iron Dome stuff, or like consumer grade. So you can just effectively like put these around your land, and any drones that come up, they're just kind of shooting them out of the sky.
Sovereign individual thesis coming true right before our eyes. But no, it is. I mean, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Bram and Michael. Like, I think it's what is the moat? Like, I'm happy I stumbled into creating a media company. Didn't even intend to when I started writing the newsletters 9 years ago, but fast forward to today, and I think having distribution, having audience is a moat to an extent. The other thing too is like these things, like they do automate things, but it's like the Jevons paradox comes into play too. Like I've had more 1 a.m., 3 a.m. nights than the last
Woke up to a nightmare.
Oh,
I thought that was me. I was like, holy shit.
I thought that was. I think
that was me. Someone sent me something on Twitter, and I clicked. I didn't want it. It made a song with.
Sorry, Marty's having late night dreams about.
No, I thought my wife's car connected to my Bluetooth. I was like, what's going on here? Yeah. No, but I've had more like Jevons paradox. Like it's certainly helped us automate a bunch of stuff at TFTC, but it's also like the idea guy in me is like going wild right now. Like I've been more productive and just.
But I mean, I feel 15, 16 again. When I was just tinkering on the computer, I have 1 or 2 a.m. nights now. It's just it is just so incredibly much. And I think when you are curious and a bit of a computer nerd, not even a coder, this is really the time to dive in. So I fully recognize that because I have exactly the same. It's so it's like new ground, right? Just this whole. I have a friend of mine who has an office here above me, and he is one of these people that bought a Mac Mini, right? And he's running this OpenClaw on it. And we were just sitting there and just thinking about it. Like it's just so crazy that there's like an intelligence that has its own computer. But the intelligence, we were watching a few weeks ago. We had this evening session. We were watching videos and stuff, and just tinkering, and we saw Eric Schmidt say, "You can now say to an agent, read all of chemistry." And we were looking at each other like, "Read all of chemistry? What the fuck?" Like that? Like how do you even interpret that, right? And then we were thinking like, this is what you can do inside of the computer, right? So you can tell the intelligence in the computer, read all of chemistry, and then use all this computing power in in this box that you're in, right? To just figure shit out. And then we were realizing, okay, if we have 5 of these agents that read all of chemistry, and you give them a certain creative direction to do discovery or whatever, it is arguably better than 5 PhDs who read less than the agent that read all of
Well,
chemistry, right? And they have all their human
it
attributes and whatever. And that is so mind blowing to me that
So it
like
is and it isn't. This ties into like my clip before you pull it up though, because I know it gets a lot of shit, but it's a great pod, and we have a marketing person that's trying to help me do more marketing. So I have a like tweet thread, and it's set up for I'll maybe drop it over the weekend. But it was an Evolve pod that came out yesterday about AI,
this one.
and well, yeah, this is where it's going to relate to the tweet. This was kind of inspired by tinkering, but then also a conversation Marty and I had. But going back to a couple of notes, one is like in all businesses, like in anything we're talking about, liquidity is the mode, right? So Marty's newsletter distribution is what matters. But everything we're talking about here is actually already existed. Like the AI is just a mirror of yourself. So the inputs you're giving it are going to be the things that you already had. And then to your point, yes, people can code, but at the end of the day, engineers will always code better because they have the substrate and understanding below that. So they can back into it in the same way that you're describing. Yes, we can go and do chemistry, but the PhDs that can do that are going to fundamentally come out with better things. Because a couple notes that I was taking that will relate to this is one is, um, so I'm just looking at like at the end of the day, like human creativity, that's the alpha. But then also the self-directed, like the desire to learn is actually scarce. So just the people playing with this stuff is there. But then the other one is there's this notion that Steve Jobs says creativity is just putting things together. And what Naval was saying, and I agree with this, he disagrees. He says that he doesn't think it's correct. Creativity is coming up with answers from questions that are out of the bounds of thinking. Because that's ultimately what we're talking about is that like the models of these things aren't going to come up with anything interesting. You're going to have to be able to start to think
Mhm.
about these other deals. So the tweet I had was effectively about, to your point, that I also feel like a kid. It feels even crazier than Bitcoin, to be honest, or maybe right up there, because everything is possible. I've always thought everything's possible. Like now it's actually true that it's just the limits of like your work, your curiosity, but then you still need the basis of some like underlying experience frame of reference to help underpin it. Because if everyone has access to this, theoretically, everyone can come up with similar things. But what is your ultimate like edge, or where do you come up with that creativity that's out of the bounds of people questioning it? And I tied this back to Bitcoin because after that, thousands of people onboarded, working with people in custody, there's a realization that the delta between somebody parking all their wealth in Bitcoin and not is literally like tinkering. Because if you didn't tinker, how could you ever get to the understanding of parking large amounts of wealth in 12 words or hardware device? But once you do that, it builds upon everything else that we're doing here today. And we've all had the past 10 years playing with this stuff in the same way of like just the notion of talking about outside and the robots building. People will think that's crazy. We know it's not crazy because of everything that's happened, including what like Musk is doing. So you can't even come to those conclusions unless you're already messing around with this and seeing how fast it's progressing. And so the encouragement was just start playing with this stuff because there's no choice. Like the only winning move is to really play or to tinker.
Yeah. Well, this is what I wanted to say to finish my sentence is when I think it's Einstein, Newton, and some other of these well-known guys. Even I think it's is it Mozart. Like all these people say like all my biggest ideas, my biggest inventions, the things that people still remember, all came from periods where I was really playing, right? Playing as a kid, having like this new mind, just understanding that I'm, and we all are just a manifestation vehicle. We are the creators, and if you allow, um, the download or however you want to call it to just come through you and do the thing, you can have really big breakthroughs. So I fully agree with what you're saying, and the point I wanted to make is that I think there's going to be randos that are going to be in their attic or their garage, like, fucking nerds that no one knows that are going to have really big breakthroughs. Like people that are not in academic circles, have no publications or whatever, they're just going to tinker. They're going to be curious. They're going to buy, this hardware stuff that I just mentioned or whatever, just off the shelf stuff, and you're going to have breakthroughs. Same as that, I think. And I've been tweeting it for almost 2 years now. I've been saying like within 12 to 18 months. So it's a bit slower, but I think there's going to be a fully AI created movie by some creative guy or group or whatever, fully AI, everything AI, that's going to have like, I don't know, 100 or 150 million views or whatever on YouTube or X, and they're gonna make 50 million of donations or whatever. Like I'm waiting for that moment where it's going to show that if you are a creative person and you're like properly creative, right? You create something novel using the technology of AI, you're gonna reach a lot of people and you're gonna be rewarded for it, right? Like that eventually the biggest movie ever to be watched on this planet is going to be a movie fully made with AI. Eventually, is what I think. Marty, I see you nod a little. I wonder what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. The we've just,
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys have seen it. We've experimented with the AI generated videos
yeah,
at TFTC and like 2-minute clips. One got like across all platforms, got like 30 million views. The
yeah,
Federal Reserve creation of the Federal Reserve video
yeah.
that we made,
Exactly.
and that was we made that in October, so like 4 months ago, and it was like with Veo 3, and you could only do like 8-second clips at a time, and the voice, the 11 Labs voice is like still a little robotic, but if we can do that, sure, there's somebody who's much more creative and understands cinematography and screen setting and like literally the language that would go into prompting that way better than I do, and our team
Yeah,
does. That is
yeah,
gonna do that, and
yeah.
I mean, I think that's the most exciting part to me. It's not that like I think that's a foregone conclusion that's going to happen, but stories that Hollywood and the gatekeepers would never tell are going to get told, and it's going to be it's just going to be an explosion of creativity and an exploration of ideas that have been gatekept for quite some time, like the
Yeah.
history of the Federal Reserve. Like we literally just took the creature from Jackal Island and like broke it down into pieces and created like a scene and create a bunch of scenes and a script out of it, and we've repurposed somebody else's work. And it's just like Creature from Jackal Island's like a book that Bitcoiners and Austrian economists and conspiracy theorists that you need to read. And to my knowledge, it never broken into the format that we put it in with the AI generated video, and it went crazy viral. Still to this
Yeah.
day, there's just people reposting it on Instagram, on X, all that.
Yeah, I love that. I think maybe like 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer, I saw a video of a guy, and I remember the name on YouTube because it was so fascinating. It's his name on YouTube is CGP Grey. I hope the channel still exists, and he has, I think, a 3 or 4 part series that is called "Everything is a Remix." And so, if you're a creative person, and I have to think about it now because of what you said, Marty. You should check out those videos. I will try to put it on the screen because it'll actually help you to, I think, also be more creative and use AI in these ways that you just mentioned. There is so much um, information in the world, right? That a lot of people already found, years ago, and agree is valid, etc., but it didn't reach any bigger audiences. And I think AI is a way to reach way more. Look, this guy is still making video, but it's very it's quite it's pretty cool. It's all like animated. Everything's a remix. Yeah, so it's gone here. But if you look for Everything's a Remix, CGP Grey, you should find it somewhere. I always thought it was very, very interesting. All right, next one. I really wonder what you guys think of this. I saw Anthony Scaramucci tweet. Is the Clarity Act Clarity Act passing already baked into the Bitcoin price? And I looked on Polymarket, and it said, um, oh no, 71%. It was like 79, 82 before. And I also saw that there is now a a March 1 deadline on this. And so I saw Scaramucci tweet like, "Is this already baked in?" I think it's a dumb question because I replied like, "Is full knowledge of Bitcoin already implemented in the brains of 99% of people?" I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, I'm not in America. I just wanted to get your guys' take on not only this deadline, but also this whole idea of the Clarity Act. Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Do you see it happening? We see it shoot up on Polymarket. So I just wonder what you guys think and what your prediction also is, and maybe also why do we now see this deadline?
I think we're like efficient market hypothesis like comes in is there's like different time scales. Like is the ETF priced in or Clarity or whatever? It's like, well, no, because Bitcoin's reflexive in demand. So like obviously that to your point is true. But I can see how there's certain things baked in into like ETF approvals or the Trump administration. We saw the price do certain things and it kind of, reversed back. I don't think it's baked in that respect here because when you think about institutional investors, regulatory administration, like there's a lot of people that have capital that would like to invest in venture funds into institutional on behalf of their balance sheet that do want regulatory clarity. The easy example is like banks. Most people don't want to move their money from a bank to a crypto native firm or a Bitcoin native firm. They rather just buy it through their bank. And so if the administration, there's clarity and they can offer it, that will offer more flows. But what I do think is somewhat baked into Bitcoin's price, it's kind of off the question, but I'd be curious your guys' thoughts, is just like the geopolitical situation. Like something, we know is either broken in the like traditional crypto regular markets, or there's like an impending war that's kind of like built into this price. And maybe, if there's something kinetic that happens, you see a little bit of a drawdown. But I think that's something that's baked into this price is like a foregone conclusion. There's going to be some like risk off move, and Bitcoin potentially was one of the first assets to move before that happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jack Mallers was talking about it on his show earlier this week. We covered it in the newsletter, I think this morning. But if you just look at the divergence of the Bitcoin price from like NASDAQ and other stocks that it was heavily correlated with just 6 months ago, it's definitely fallen significantly. To your point, Michael, it seems like this liquidity alarm bell function of Bitcoin may be coming into play here. And so I wouldn't be surprised if something does happen. Like everybody's meeting in the Strait of Hormuz right now to see if we're going to World War III. That would definitely be a risk off moment. If you look at the position,
Aspiring to for alien disclosure, they're doing it all together. They're just having a picnic.
Yeah, here's the Epstein files. We're going to World War III. The aliens are here. Just bombard people. Beware Project Bluebeam freaks could be upon us. But if you look at
Michael just went away and we're diverging.
So I could see markets taking a turn. Obviously, like the GDP numbers in the U.S. came back pretty poor today. Supreme Court shot down those tariffs, but it seems like Trump's immediately routing around them. Long-winded way of saying like, yeah, there could be some turmoil. We had a private equity fund here in the United States basically gate redemptions because they had so many people calling for their money. Many people are looking at that being like, oh, is there contagion risk in private equity, which has blown up in the last 5 years and is pushing a bunch of cash into non-performing loans. Who knows? I could definitely see a downturn coming. If you look at all the positioning by like the major funds are all getting short now, which the contrarian me is like, all right, everybody's short. Maybe they get caught off sides. When it comes to Clarity Act, is it priced in? I don't know. I don't think anything's priced in fully yet, to your point earlier. Like if anything was priced in, Bitcoin would be like $10 million already. So I think we're just waiting for that. Why the deadline? Just to make sure we're answering all your questions. Because Trump ran on this and we're in a mid-year election cycle here in the United States, and he needs to put some wins on the board in terms of promises made, promises delivered. And so Clarity Act being one of those. I actually don't know what the current form of the Clarity Act is in the languages, but as long as it has protections for open source developers and self-custody, that's all we care Bitcoiners, but in reality, most of the Clarity Act is for shitcoiners who want to dump tokens on retailers and share stablecoin yield with their customers. I think it will pass, and it will pass soon. And I could see it actually being a windfall for the Bitcoin price, because you just have a bunch of institutions who don't understand any of this, and they just say Clarity Act pass, good for crypto, good for Bitcoin, throw the money in.
Agreed. I mean, it comes up to, I don't know, Bram, if you want this relates to mine was just the Wells Fargo. I think it's pretty crazy knowing what we know about Wells Fargo, going heavy across everything tokenized related digital assets. I would believe Bitcoin's embedded in there. And then also, Charles Schwab, I think they're rolling out their own stable coin. Morgan Stanley really going heavy. It came out a few weeks ago into like building their own wallet infrastructure. And then obviously Fidelity launched their stable coin. I think a lot of that is built in to the knowledge, to your point, that this stuff is going to get passed. Like there's a natural thing we all know about US Treasury demand, and you need these stable coins to proliferate. And so I think this is the thing, we keep talking about week over week, but like this is somewhat of the signal in the sense that the largest institutions, these are like combined, the three that we just talked about, manage like 20 to 30 trillion dollars in capital. Like that's an insane number that they're all turning on exposure to Bitcoin and stable coins. So I think to that point, like they know that this is going to get the green light from the administration, and they need to have a plan, or they're just going to get caught off sides.
Yeah, I fully agree on this. I mean, this is the biggest the biggest point of contention, right? Is yield on stable coins or something like that, right? So in that sense, it's a threat for banks. I do think it's very interesting. Michael and I have talked about this before, and I wonder what you think, Marty. But I once had American Hodl say, like, Bitcoiners are 8 years ahead of everyone. So I just think TradFi is having its 2017 crypto type moment, right? We're going to tokenize all the things, not understanding that those are all permissioned blockchains. Someone has to be in control of the thing that is tokenized to put it on the chain, and then literally a chain of trust in order to do all these things. But then next to that, parallel to that, what Mike said, if this gets passed and there's some sort of free market of currencies, monies, whatever, stablecoin, free markets starting in the US, and anyone, well, not anyone, right? Because you have to be a bank, right? Like any bank can start their own coins, or you're going to get Schwab coin and Morgan coin and all these things. I think it's a big threat to them. So I agree. Like they really have to act, and I also agree that they won't. They're not acting if they're not confident it's going to pass. What do you think, Marty?
Yeah, I would co-sign that. And to your point about American Hodl's comment on everybody being 8 years behind, I think it's funny. I think Vlad from Robinhood was tweeting out earlier today or this week about their testing their like on-chain equity instruments, and he just ran with the Brian Armstrong quote. The future is on chain. It's like completely nonsensical and retarded. And I think that would be a signal that the incumbent TradFi fintech world is 8 years behind. They're enamored by tokenization and all that, and I think there certainly is. There can be a case. There is a case to be made that tokenization of some things may make sense, but I don't think it needs to run on a blockchain to be on chain, like on Base, or if Robinhood's spinning up their own L2 that's centrally controlled. It's like, why introduce a blockchain functionality to this thing that could be a SQL database?
I fully agree. But even just this is probably, well, it could be a 5-minute or it could be a 2-hour conversation just explaining why tokenization on a permissioned blockchain is. Well, 8 years ago, I was walking around in a bank, and they were talking about tokenization, and they followed this shipment of grain on some ship, and everyone involved was updated in real time with this
IBM
fancy
tomatoes on the
database,
blockchain. It's like
whatever that they built, right? And I just think like Tenev and Armstrong, same as when Saylor was sitting at a table and talking about crypto, they're just playing the game stay at the table. And eventually, I think also the funny thing is that even, Bitcoin is the ultimate transparency and like tool that shines the light on all the abstraction and obscurity and corruption and whatever. But even putting a permission blockchain with some tokens is going to showcase that there are certain processes, I think, in TradFi that they don't want to have uncovered, right? So I think it's going to be, there's also going to be some rollback of stuff that they're going to introduce, because it's just,
It's like, I remember Vlad this summer was tweeting and talking about like, I think their investor meeting last summer, last fall, about like, we're going to give retail investors access to commercial real estate, properties. And we're going to tokenize these properties. And going back to like the Blue Owl fund that just gated access to one of their institutional private equity funds, they did that because it was marketed towards retail, and a bunch of retail money flew into that fund that traded on public markets. And retail money is fickle. So like the first sniff of volatility, a bunch of retail traders took their money out, and like you had a redemption sort of cascade, because the retail traders aren't institutional investors like family offices or pensions that have much more capital and a much longer time horizon. So this idea that you're going to tokenize things like commercial real estate properties and give the common man access to it, I mean, I think on its face, yeah, it sounds good, but there's a reality of how capital is formed, particularly for specific endeavors, like a long-term endeavor, like a commercial real estate property or a 30-year mortgage. And you need long-term patient capital to do that. And so like you can tokenize all these things, give them access to retail. But I think what you're going to find is just creates a bunch of chaos, because you have somebody or a fund that owns properties, and you just have retail traders, like you have meme coiners coming in and trying to like pump value of the stuff, and it doesn't even make sense at the end of the day.
It's perfect you're touching upon this, because Mike and I talked about this before, but I want to get your take. My idea of a 24/7 tokenized stock market is brutal chaos, right? Because all the nerds on the internet, all the sleuths, all the crazy degenerates are going to be on Reddit and X and Discord and whatever at 1 a.m. when the CEO is sleeping, and they can just come together like they did with GameStop or whatever, and just devise a fucking plan on any stock, right? And then in the morning, the CEO wakes up and his stock tanked or is just fucked or whatever. I just think it's going to be, if the degeneracy of crypto comes to 24/7, 365 stock trading, I think it's not going to be a good thing. To be,
and it's
I think you're underestimating.
It's a complete step in the direction that I truly believe Bitcoin is trying to lead us towards. Is like, we shouldn't have to do any of this. Like none of these things should be hyper financialized, and we shouldn't have to give retail investors more access to this stuff. Like this is shit that people shouldn't have to think about unless you're actually buying a building and operating it.
Yeah. I mean, there's two aspects to this. One is what you were relating to, Bram, is in that future world, ideally, to Marty's point, you don't have to do that, because you're not even going to have an edge, because your bots and your AI agents are going to be running rampant, like doing all of that. But what we're talking about here, I believe, is a feature, not a bug, of what they're trying to do. Meaning, if you go, we don't have to go down it, but like if you go to the inner cabal, like Davos versus technocracy, there is a version of slow legacy assets, inflation, money creation. And then the opposite of that is fast movement, what's happening now with crypto. And yes, like it's not permissionless, it's permission, but that's actually a feature, because if you think about, like, an example is if you're running a stable coin and it's a closed end system, somebody hacks your account, you can just burn that token. And there's all the stuff from like equities. You're basically bypassing the old system, but just creating a new system in parallel. And I think that's by design. But at the end of the day, you go back to like the 1920s and you think about what you guys are talking about in the speculative nature, SVB in 21, that velocity that exists is going to go 10 to 100x and just cause an insane collapse. Like that's I put any money on that, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Like that's what this is what's gonna happen.
Well, it's like, how do we get this and these people don't? It's like, how do you not see these?
But the thing is, it's a feature. Like this is by design. This I don't think it's. I
And
think
they
this
want
is,
chaos. They want a permanent underclass. But
Okay,
I think a lot of people are meant to lose their money, basically.
Well, I'm
Like
happy
wiped out.
Marty is also confused because this is what I've been saying to Michael for months. I'm so bewildered that these people haven't figured it out. Like figuring out the whole perverse incentive structure of fiat money, TradFi, and literally the liberation of your mind through self custody and sovereignty with Bitcoin is the ultimate self interest test. I would say, right? The ultimate rational self-interest, interested action that you can take. So I'm also just surprised that people don't figure that
Well,
out. At least the one thing is that fiat money is a path dependent thing, and the end of the path is down zero, right? So yeah,
another way to view these things is just another form of bailout, right? Like
Yeah.
you had gated access and you give the retail investors access and you just dump your bags on them. I think look at the Trump administration. A lot of people were cheering, myself included, because I don't think they should really be involved in this. But like the banning of institutional funds like BlackRock and Blackstone from buying single family real estate properties in America, then driving it up. Everybody's like, yes, get them out because they're driving up prices. But really, at the end of the day, I think that was just what that's going to manifest in is a BTFP like bailout where they go to the private equity funds and they say, all right, we banned you from buying these properties. But really behind the scenes, they saw like, hey, they got over their skis. They built too many new builds that nobody wants to buy. And they own a bunch of real estate that looks like it's turning over. And we can't have these systemically important financial institutions go under. So we're going to ban them. And then to basically smooth out the back end of that, we're going to go to them and say, hey, we're going to buy your assets at par so you don't have to eat a loss.
What you're describing is exactly
nominally.
what I think. I know you get this a lot, Marty, where like people will talk about, well, why would people go to self custody or some version of custody that's outside of an ETF? And often, would go down this like rabbit hole of explaining different versions. You may want to use Bitcoin, but the easiest explanation is it's a contradictory move to park this asset into a system that's basically tied to too much money or too much debt and not enough dollars, because whether it's BlackRock, whoever's managing those assets, they're embedded into the system. And so you're just throwing it in there. And from a economically rational thing to do once somebody has enough exposure, because most people in ETFs don't have material exposure. Once they get there, they're like, wait, what do I have and why is it in the system? It's bound to leave, or you're going to have different assurances where you're not tied into that because you're effectively just parking that money back into what's ultimately not going to work out. Real quick, Bram, if you can pull this up, because this ties into like what we just talked about and the kind of precursor or prelude to what's going to happen. This came out where official Trump and
Can you zoom in a bit?
yeah, official Trump and Melania coin have collapsed 92 and 99% from their all-time highs. But it was saying that retail's lost $4.3 billion, 2 million wallets currently underwater. But then I think the insider tokens, I don't know. I think it's close to 1.2 billion have made off of that launch. But this is just an example of like where we're going to see, and who knows where that $1.2 billion went. But just think about $4.3 billion in economic value just wiped off. And like these people have no idea what they bought.
It's completely it's a shit. And then you see like
This is crazy.
the stuff with the Lutniks today, like
The tariff stuff.
the tariffs, like as soon as Liberation Day happened and the tariffs were put on everybody around this time last year, Howard Lutnick's son via Cantor Fitzgerald just basically went and bought puts that the tariffs would be reversed. And I guess there's some financial instrument that lets you profit or take risk on that bet. And they did.
Like to the tunes of tens of billions of dollars or something crazy. It's not even like,
It's so
Yeah,
egregious.
he made
It's
like a 4x. He paid like 25 cents on the dollar or 30 cents on the dollar or something.
yeah.
This is also why it's scary where the time we're in, because the looting is,
treasury phase.
the looting is so egregious that it's like half accumulation ritual, half just like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's all over the,
And Matt,
it's a,
Matt and I always joke about this. Like, why? Maybe we should just scam people. Everybody's done it. Why don't we just like, it's it is. I mean, and it does. I mean, we
you heard it here first. Matt
we're
and
never
Marty
gonna
are gonna
scam. We're
launch a
never gonna
DAT.
scam people. We'll
They're gonna
joke
launch a
like
DAT.
it seems much easier to just scam people, and it is hard trying to live a virtuous and moral life and doing what you believe to do the right thing. Doing what you believe is the right thing, and you just see just egregious looting all around you.
It is.
God's testing you.
I mean, yeah, it's scary, but I think it's also a confirmation. Like, this is something that has been written about as in something that has happened before many times, right? Just the term looting the treasury is a well written about term, right? And you're actually seeing it happening, which I think it just underpins the thesis, but that doesn't really make it less scary because it gives us a certain direction of where we are, right? In fourth turning, pendulum swing, end of empire, end of world reserve currency, whatever, however you want to define it. This is end stages, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we've just been like last 7 months. It's like every week. It's like oh, Somalis are taking Medicaid for $90 billion in Minnesota alone. Oh, look over here, Maine. They're doing the same thing. Oh, look over here. Epstein has Apollo and a bunch of other funds giving him hundreds of millions of dollars to influence politicians. So look over there. The Trumps just rugged their meme coin holders. Oh, turn the corner. The Lutniks are basically buying up claims for tariff I guess reparations for 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
It's
we laugh, but we like, and I know we're just, you can only laugh, but it actually is really sick and sad because there's a lot of people struggling, and
it's
you
demonic.
just see this, and what are you supposed to do? Like, they don't even have the time to reflect on it because they're just trying to, stay alive. It's messed up.
That's the thing with the acceleration, like the news cycles accelerate. Like they literally hit us with Epstein files. We're going to World War III, and by the way, the aliens are here, like in a fucking 72-hour period.
And we shut down El Paso airspace in the middle of that, and a bunch of other things that just completely got memory hold.
Yeah,
crazy. All right, guys, I'm looking at the time. I want to move on to this one.
Here's what keeps Bitcoiners awake. You're still securing millions of dollars the same way you secured thousands. That hardware wallet in your drawer, your family's entire future depends on you not losing it, forgetting the PIN, or something happening to you. OnRamp's multi-institution custody removes that burden. 3 independent institutions hold your keys, no single point of failure, no seed phrases to protect, no explaining complex recovery processes to your spouse. And now we're offering flat tier pricing. One predictable monthly fee starting at $250, whether Bitcoin is at $100K or $500K. Plus, with on-ramp IRAs, you get the same institutional security with tax advantage growth. This is how smart investors protect generational wealth without the weight on their shoulders. There's strength in many. Learn more at onrampbitcoin.com.
Mark,
here's another thing that happened this week. It's like the surveillance Panopticons. We get down. I think there was a white hat hacker group. I forget what the name of the group is, but essentially they got pissed off about Discord's new KYC verification biometric system that they're thrusting on their users, I believe, next week. They began sleuthing to figure out how it actually worked, and they came upon, I think, an exposed IP port that had a connection to OpenAI, and then they went into that port and went into that, I guess, that code base with OpenAI and discovered that OpenAI was taking that information and sending it straight to the government. And so you have this company, I think it's called Purpose or something like that, that's doing the KYC AML. PII/biometric verification on behalf of Discord. They've got a partnership with OpenAI and a bunch of other platforms as well. And they're just basically, anytime you use these apps with this verification software embedded in it, it's just like pinging the government. Like, here's what people are doing. So this is like the sly roundabout way that you can get dragnet surveillance without technically being illegal. The government just contracts third parties to do it for them. And then both Discord and OpenAI had to be like caught with their dick in their hands. Like, oh, we got to take some time to figure out how to respond to this.
Well, this ties into that first tweet we had shared, or I'd shared about, you look at land, guns, your money, and you're probably your own servers and rack space, because you're going to want to own your own data where we're going, and even hardware. Because it kind of ties into, this is speculative, but where the OpenClaw stuff felt like a little bit of an op with OpenAI, because ultimately you have this fervor, they do this acquisition, and I look at OpenAI as almost like AOL, where it was the first, and like everyone that's boomer or normie is just going to use it, and they're just going to give full access to, like, root access to their computers. And it's going to tie even more all that. And then the last piece is, it just reminds me of like Minority Report. I went and watched it, like, the frame of reference from years versus like months, and all the new information. You watch it and you're just like, oh my God, like you can see how it's already happening in Europe, like where they're, pre-crime, or when you mention something on social media, that if you're feeding these prompts and data and it's triangulating based on other things you're putting out, and it's like this graph is, you have a high probability of maybe doing something. You're just like, hey, we got to go like get this guy off the streets. And we're not that far from it.
Well, I saw this. Someone built an AI red team that maps your entire attack surface as a knowledge graph, finds every vulnerability, then exploits them to the root access autonomously. So, I wonder where all of this is gonna go, right? There's white hat, black hat. I just really wonder where this is gonna go. I thought this was very, very, very scary.
Yeah. That's why you run this in a VPS. Don't ever put it on your computer. That has all the other information.
What I'm doing. Okay. Next one.
Bram, come on, dude.
Sorry.
Come on.
All right. I got this one from Michael.
I don't even remember what this is about. Oh, yeah, this is basically in a world full of chaos, Bitcoin's a signal. I found this. It was DC can't coherent. They don't have a coherent crypto agenda. It was actually less relevant to this. It was Bitcoin only immutable blockchain. What really tied into it is this is like obvious for us, but it's really pretty crazy. Like the notion that I don't have $1 billion, but if I did, I could send $1 billion to Marty or Bram right now with no intermediary. And in this world that we're talking about, that's insane. And that trust is breaking down. The ability to not only take delivery of that underlying, own it, move with it, but then send it somewhere else in a world that is becoming increasingly chaotic. And to this tweet's point, it's like the only immutable blockchain. It's just going to be more important now than ever. And so we look at the price, and it's all kind of like sucks right now. We're sitting at 1.3 versus 2 that I keep still quoting $1 trillion. And you just can't like really fathom that empowerment. And it always goes back to like this mental model that me and Marty talked about this years ago, about like, this is when Silicon Valley was breaking down. It's like, would you rather have $500,000 in BTC or $1 million in a bank? And like most of us would rather have the BTC, like if you had to keep it there for a year or 2 years, because you have no power and they're never going to let you take that amount out. And obviously most of the other people would rather have the $2 million, but that level of zen of just knowing, because you don't need $500K or $2 million to rest easy at night, but you do need the peace of mind that you own your money where we're heading to. And I think that's lost on most people.
They have no idea.
Just imagine just getting turned off like tomorrow, like how many years you slept knowing that you can just like, you at least are in control of your destiny, where most people can't fathom. Even like people like talk to them all the time that hold hundreds of millions of dollars on different custodial exchanges across the world. And you're like, look, you don't have to use our services, but just rethink at least for a percentage of that, because I could never go to sleep at night knowing that the next day they're just like, hey, we don't necessarily like you anymore, or you did something, said something, your phone's hacked. the servers hacked, and everything's wiped away. Like, what world would you want, especially with an AI increased world with agents running rapid? Like, it's just insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, almost as brilliant as Hans Hermann Hoppe, what you just said, but this use case is so basic, right? This is why I'm so bewildered constantly. It's like it is just extremely basic, and it's all in this good faith fairy tale type of way. And it's funny, actually. Oh, funny. There's guys in the chat. Actually, there's this guy who said, "Why are you guys in the Bitcoin? Have you actually verified the code for yourself, or line by line, or just trust me, bro?" Like for me, it's Marty's looking for something. It is
I think
stuff
he's
like this.
trolling. It says Paradigm Miner with a bit.
Oh yeah, so maybe he's into Bitcoin. They're all just trust me, bro. As someone else says, they're in the biggest psyop known to man. That is okay. Maybe.
Epstein
I'm
is
looking-
Satoshi, and it's
Epstein is
the Goem
Satoshi.
coin.
He cannot spell pallet.
looking
He's
around.
Satoshi.
I'm looking around because I actually did read Bitcoin line by line. There was a coffee table book of the original source code, and I had it. It's not in
Nice.
this library. It's in my other.
You're not going to pull up Bitcoin for Dummies, like Epstein's book. You're not going to.
Well, my point is more that the entire world is a trust me, bro. And I think once you see that, you cannot unsee.
And it's trust
You-
minimized is the point. There's no
Yeah.
there's no such thing as trustless. It's trust minimized across
Yeah.
the board. You never.
And
live
Bram,
in
I think we've talked about this. Like, trust is not going to go away. Like, you just want trust minimization. Like, to the point of what I was saying earlier, like tokenized real estate. Like, I don't want 1,000 retail investors if I'm a real estate developer, like investing in a project. Like, I want a banker or a private credit fund that I can go shake their hand. We can have a long-term relationship where it's like, you give me money, I'll bid this thing, I'll get tenants, I'll get revenue, I'll pay you back. Like, I don't want to have to not trust anybody and just open up the gates to anybody who wants a piece of this commercial real estate property.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but it's also people are, I think it all ties together what we talked about before. This is such a long game, and the distractions along the way are all very tempting. Being bored is easy, right? Losing the bigger picture is easy. Like hodling is just incredibly hard. So I mean, I have empathy for that, and I also understand that is just how it goes. So
You have to develop interests outside of Bitcoin. You can't it's
Yeah.
Well, that's what we
Tinker
were
with
talking
AI.
about. Sorry, go ahead.
tinker with AI. Bitcoin's boring. Bitcoin is boring. Like the literal protocol.
That's the
is boring.
point.
Like how it
Yes.
works. It's like
exactly.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Like, the name of the game is, there's like 3 aspects. If you're in the industry, you don't want to soil your reputation. Like, 1, because it's a long game, so that doesn't go away. 2 is you don't want to use leverage or mix up in counterparty risk, because that's generally how people lose their assets to stay alive. But then to Marty's point is, like, most people should not have to do any of that. They should just go back to producing value, stacking, and a money that can be taken, and then they benefit. But what the key point is, the price cut in half, which is a blessing for most people if they were doing that, because they're producing value. So now their dollar goes twice as far in the amount of sats they can stack. And especially in the AI world, now they can go and create any amount of value and go save that in a harder form of money and just thrive in this new world. It's actually fairly straightforward, but for whatever reason, we got the mind virus, and people just always want to continue to listen to podcasts. So we'll continue to do them.
please keep
but
listening. Bram and I.
no, but like, it's just the reality of we do need you, but I mean, I think why podcasts are good and they proliferate is because ultimately this stuff is so crazy, and so you need the you need the affirmations. Back in the day, there was no Bitcoin podcast, so I met Marty and Matt. I was listening to their podcast because you're alone, you can't talk to anybody, so you need to listen to somebody to tell you that you're in this together and you're also not crazy. So these are valuable, but the point is, like, to a certain level, they start to become not valuable once your foundation solid. It's just go back to the world. Like, if you need that foundation, get it, but not bips that are going, like, all the crazy shit. Like, it's gonna be okay. You can go back to the world. There's
Yeah.
people working on this stuff.
And it's funny, right? Like, you need to. I still don't know. There's another guy in the chat. I don't know if he's a troll or real, but it is early and you need to do the work because, you know, Bitcoin is an NSA created system. We are turning our heads to that, right? SHA-256 isn't used anywhere else in the world, guys. Call your bank, ask them what COBOL is, right? If they are working on implementing or improving that,
the internet was created by DARPA, and we all have to use it. I don't, it doesn't take away from. Anyway, it is what it is.
you should go off the internet. You should go off the internet if that's the thing. Did you know criminals use knives in cars too? You should stop using that too. Anyway, last thing. I want to get Marty's thoughts on this. We saw this new research by River, and I think it's very interesting in this kind of stage where price goes down. Some people say this is psychological. 4-year cycle, people are selling, or there is more stuff happening in the market. It's a Hong Kong fund or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? But every time we have a drawdown like this, we see this shift. And to extend on what I said about hodling is hard, this is when you're tested, right? And when we see that it is moving from individuals to non-individuals, right? Companies, governments, whatever. I think we're still early, but again, also, there's a long way to go. I think this is why Marty and I have a podcast. We just want to tell other people, badly, figure this out, please. Figure this out, And I do want to add one other thing that is connected to this. I think it's probably from the same report, this picture, but there's still most is still in the hands of individuals, which I think is good. But because this is a long and bumpy road, you need to do the work. This is a very big and new and very profound technological discovery that you don't just understand easily. So this is kind of what I wanted to wrap up with is these numbers, and I wonder what you guys think about this and the fact that we see this every time, basically, when the price goes down.
I think I'm actually well suited to speak on this, considering I just spoke with Alex Leishman, who is the CEO of River, which put out this report, and this is what we talked about for an hour. Many ways to look at this, many ways to understand this. Yes, far right. 2024, I think it was 525,000 Bitcoin negative for individuals. This year, 696. So over 1.2 million Bitcoin have flown out of the wallets of individuals towards businesses, funds and ETFs, and governments. And many people will look at that and be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? We're losing Bitcoin ethos. It's not happening. But this is always how it was going to play out. Bitcoin is as valuable and as useful and has the utility that we believe and that we know that it has. More entities outside of individuals are going to recognize that, including businesses. And through my conversation with Alex, I think one of the encouraging things is people will see the businesses side of the chart and they'll immediately think of MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, Semler Scientific, 21, whatever it may be like, oh, all those DATs are sucking up the Bitcoin. But in reality, there's a ton of Main Street, small, medium-sized businesses. They're run by Bitcoiners who want Bitcoin on their business balance sheet as well. So that's contributing there. Funds in ETFs, yeah, it's obvious they're going to get in, but you have to recognize that those funds and ETFs manage money on behalf of millions of people. So it's individuals getting exposure in a different way, and then governments. That's a whole nother can of worms. I think it's been pretty clear since the beginning that once people understand Bitcoin and there's mad dash for it, governments are going to get in the game as well. And I said it with Alex, and I'll say it here. I think when you look at that chart, you just have to reframe it. And the last 2 years have seen this sort of explosion of the type of investor expanding beyond individuals and OGs selling their coins to lock in some gains, I guess, and retire. But I think the reframe is we were incredibly fortunate to have the 14-year, 15-year run that we did as individuals to be able to accumulate and bootstrap this network. We were the crazy ones that proved it works, that it has value, and got it to a market structure point where it made sense for all these other actors to get in. And I hate to break it to you, but the trend on that chart is going to continue in the direction it's been going in the last 2 years. And that's just the nature of Bitcoin succeeding. That's not to say that individuals should give up on trying to accumulate Bitcoin, but just looking at the math, like these businesses, institutions, and governments have way more money than individuals. Any one individual can. If every individual were to wake up tomorrow and smash buy some Bitcoin, yeah, it could go in the other direction. But as we've been describing throughout this conversation, like the information isn't fully distilled and people are going to come to those conclusions independently. So you're not going to have a Saturday, February 21st smash by billions of people around the world. It's going to happen slowly but surely. And while that's happening, you're going to have much larger actors independently come to the same conclusion, but able to deploy way more money into it at a single point in time.
Yeah, it's really well put. I mean, you talked about this a lot. There's an order of operations to all of this, and what you just described was always going to happen, and it's going to accelerate. And the kicker is it's good for Bitcoin. This is something that took me a while to learn because I came in very ideological, trying to help individuals that didn't have wealth. But the reality is, as more people park large amounts of wealth, it permeates throughout the entire system, and there's more liquidity and there's more ability for people to hold their wealth without the volatility. And the reality is just the law of the universe is Pareto distribution. There's always going to have, yes, the network's decentralized, but there's large pockets of capital that will move the price, will come in. And even like, as Marty mentioned, if everyone tomorrow that was an individual smash bought Bitcoin, yes, the price would shoot up, but then the people with all the money would go and pick up the rest. They would just accelerate it. Like, so either way, this is the way it was going to go. But at the end of the day, the system is egalitarian. It's equitable in the sense that your Bitcoin's your Bitcoin. Your purchasing power increases the same way as everyone else's. And that's the main idea here is it's it's a get rich slow scheme dressed up as a get rich quick scheme, is that you just have to stack your money and its purchasing power increases in value. And then you can just do more with your life versus getting sucked away via inflation. That's the guiding principle. It's not like who gets in early, who gets in late. Everyone gets the benefit from the properties of it.
Yeah, I agree. So let's wrap up. I want to wrap up with one thing that I just saw that ties back to our AI conversation. I don't know if you guys saw. Oh, I'm a noob here. Wait, give me one sec. There was a blog post by Anthropic, and they are introducing Cloud Code Security. It scans code bases for vulnerabilities and suggests targeted software patches for human review, allowing teams to find and fix issues. Right. So we were talking about the disruption of AI, like this acceleration, the fact that you should tinker with it, think about the implications. If everything is abundant, what is the scarcest thing, and what is the impact on yourself? But we have this, and then I saw this post that says 21 billion got wiped from cybersecurity stocks in one afternoon after Anthropic posted this, right? So CrowdStrike -8, Cloudflare -8, Okta, Golden Child stock, by the way, -9. Cybersecurity ETF closed at its lowest since November 23. So, you can here. AI doesn't need to replace your industry; it needs to make Wall Street believe it might. So super interesting to see what the impact is even on the possibility of this also creative destruction that we talked about, and actually having these new capabilities baked into Claude is also going to give creative people the ideas to build on that again. So that's what I mean, like it is just accelerating like
Are
crazy.
these Anthropic guys just banking, like shorting stocks when they release features?
That would be
Like they
fire.
have to be. If not, like they're going to be after this because they did it a couple weeks ago, and then just right here, I hadn't seen.
Crazy.
Well, they need to actually make money somehow. They're not doing it by letting us drill their inference.
I don't know. I'm
Drill their
sending them
models.
$200 a month, so there's something.
I mean, dude, I'm getting. Don't change your pricing, Anthropic, but I'm definitely spending probably more than $200 in electricity a month.
Well, it's only because I had the API before, and now I'm like, fuck, I need to try the plan and see if I can max that.
That's like, I mean, that's another question many people have been asking, like, what would you be willing to pay? Like, I think I'd easily pay $1,000, $1,500 a month.
Oh, hell yeah.
What I'm getting out of it.
Sure.
Easily.
If you have a good setup, that is
Yeah.
nothing in that sense. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, Marty, I'm happy you were here again. This is our biggest live count to date, and that's probably because you were here. So thanks for being here.
I think it's your red glasses, but we'll count it.
It is. Yeah, you got, dude, you're swagged out right now, brother.
I need to put up an affiliate shop here somewhere. Got to make money somewhere. All right, guys.
Thanks
Well,
for joining, Marty.
Thank you
for having me, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure.
Cheers. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.